Hey there, Christina Marie Anderson here, owner of Wondersoul Co., a web development studio packed with personality. And I specialize in creating strategic WordPress websites that act as a foundational hub for all of your online marketing efforts. And I want to thank you again for showing up here on YouTube to watch the video version of the scenic route, learning more about what it's like to be in business as a web developer and hearing me share my insights on business in general as a female entrepreneur. I am here today to talk to you about quarter 3 and quarter 4 and what went right, what went wrong in quarter 3, and how we're going to change things up in quarter 4 to make sure that I am setting myself up for success for the end of the year, but also heading into 2024 on the right foot. So if you are new around here, thank you so much again for joining. I like to go through a couple of different steps in these videos. Usually I start out by talking about what's going on with me and my business, what I'm seeing. Then I talk about what I'm doing to fix it in my business or what I'm changing to see different results. And then I give you a couple of thoughts that you can think about yourself to make sure that your own business is aligned with where you want to go. So today I'm going to talk about my focus for Q4. Then I'm going to talk a little bit more about my content strategy and why that is what I'm leaning into this quarter and all of the different places that you're going to be able to find me online. And then I'm going to finish this up with a few questions that you can ask yourself to get the most out of Q4 and head into 2024 very, very strong in your business. All right, stick around and I will talk a little bit more about what I'm going to be focusing on in Q4. So before I get into what I'm going to be focusing on in Q4, let me talk just a little bit about what Q3 was like for me, what the rest of this year was like for me, what's working, what's not, and why I'm choosing what I'm choosing to focus on in Q4. So first of all, as you may know from some of the previous videos, sales in general are down. I have had fewer leads coming into my business. So that's definitely been something that's not working really well as of right now, as of the end of Q3. And so obviously one thing I'll be working on is finding ways to generate more new leads in my business in Q4. But that being said, I have still had some really successful months in Q3 because I have set myself up with some fantastic referral partners and some white label partners where they are completely in charge of sales and marketing. And all I have to do is quote a project and get the project completed, which is really one of my favorite ways to work. So that has been super successful in my business. And the other thing that's been really successful for me in Q3 is connecting with people in a way where they can see my face and hear me talk a little bit. So I like when I show up on video here on YouTube in the Loom videos that I send to clients or potential clients, there's a lot of sort of connection that happens in these videos. I like to think that like this is where I shine. This is where I can be uniquely me and really show like why I stand out above other web developers. So that's been something for me that if I can get on video in front of someone, especially if I'm giving advice in that video, like in a Loom video, I can send some specific advice about someone's homepage or the layout of their website or what have you. That has been a really good way for me to continue to generate leads even when things are pretty slow. But now let's talk a little bit about what I'm going to be focusing on in Q4 to enhance the efforts that I've already been doing to make sure that I continue to have successful months in business. And also, one thing that sort of plagues me as an entrepreneur is I love new beginnings, but sometimes the beginning of the year can almost feel like I'm starting over from scratch in my business, which is not true. I have systems and repeatable processes in place, but when we get to the new year, something about January just feels like a little overwhelming and like, what if I can't do it this year? Which imposter syndrome is real, friends. I feel it too. So you are not alone if that's a question that you ask yourself around the beginning of the year. So yes, I want to make sure that I'm focusing on things that make Q4 successful, but I also want to make sure I'm focusing on things that will make quarter 1 of next year successful. So I don't feel that sort of scramble come January 1st. So in Q4, what I'm going to be focusing on the most are things that are within my control. So I've mentioned before on some of my previous videos, you likely know this as well, that sales in general are down. People are holding onto their money for longer. The lead life cycle is a lot longer, and it's taking more time to give people the know, like, and trust factor that they're looking for. So all of that is a little bit out of my control. I can't help when people are going to spend their money and how tightly they're going to hold on to it in the meantime. So what I am focusing on are the things that I have in my control that I can continue to do no matter how anybody else is dealing with their money or their businesses, etc. So what I'm really going to be focusing on in Q4 this year is blogging, getting these YouTube videos out, and continue to interact with people in a way that lets them see my expertise. So this may also look a little bit like showing up as a speaker at some summits. I'm still kind of trying to navigate the ins and outs of that world, but that is definitely someplace I would like to head. And continuing to network, continuing to build white label relationships with marketing partners, and really just focusing on getting myself seen and seen as the expert that I am. And again, I just talked about imposter syndrome. Sometimes it can still feel really hard to say that I'm an expert in anything, but I have a lot of knowledge and expertise around web development, but also around being a female in business, and specifically setting strong boundaries that help women succeed in business. So I am certainly an expert in topics that are near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to be showing up and giving that expertise out in as many ways as is possible over the next few months. The other things that I'm going to be focusing on are, or the other main thing that I'm going to be focusing on is repurposing my content. This is obviously a very hot topic in the world of entrepreneurialism. And it's one of those topics that feels like a well, duh, and also how in the world do I do that topic? And I feel like I've been fighting to figure out how to repurpose my content. If you've been around for a long time, if you've been a part of my newsletter, you know that last year I sent out 2 email newsletters a week, almost every week. So over 100 emails worth of content, and I never did anything else with them. A little bit ashamed to admit that maybe, but like all of that content just sits inside of Flowdesk, my email marketing tool. I never archived them on my website. I never like did anything with those. I think I even had my virtual assistant at the time repurpose all of those to be on my website, and I just never did anything with it. So that's a struggle. That's something I've been struggling with ongoing. So this year I'm actually going to be working on, or this quarter, I'm actually going to be working on a true content repurposing strategy that I have mapped out. And I'll talk a little bit more in depth about what that looks like in a minute and why I chose that, or why I chose this specific repurposing strategy. And this is something like I'm going to lay it out here for you in a minute. So if you want to copy it yourself, you totally can. But this content repurposing strategy might not work for you. And I say that because I have been trying to find the right content repurposing strategy for so long, like months and months and months, at least since the beginning of the year. But honestly, I was already thinking about it last year, and there really was like nothing that felt true to me and the way that I want to show up. So now that I'm doing these YouTube videos, everything is finally clicked, and I know how I'm going to take all of my content and disseminate it across multiple channels. So let's dive in a little bit to what that looks like. And again, if this is something that resonates with you, you can totally copy this strategy, copy and paste it right out of here. All right, let's dive into that. So, as I just mentioned, my content strategy is going to be based off of a YouTube video, much like this YouTube video that you're watching right now. I've been creating these every week, and they were originally meant to be sort of an addendum, another way to access my content. But the more that I film them, the more that I'm realizing that this is where I shine. Like I said, getting on video, showing my personality, being uniquely me, this really encompasses all of those things. And so previously, I was trying to make my email newsletter the main piece of content, but it just never really turned into something that I could disseminate in so many different places. So as you can see from this diagram here, I am going to be starting with a YouTube video. And let's go over to this first column. I will then be sending the YouTube video out in my email newsletter. And this week is going to be the first week that the sort of structure, the layout of my email newsletter looks a little bit different, so that I'm highlighting the YouTube video rather than hiding it behind sort of this like veil of, oh, it's not that important. No, these YouTube videos are important. And like I said, it's where I shine. It's where I get some of my best thoughts out, and I want to share that with more people. So once I have that email newsletter, I'm going to archive the email newsletter on my website. So it will basically act as a blog post, but I'll make sure that I have an archive page set up where you could theoretically see every edition of the Scenic Route, my email newsletter, that comes out. I'm also going to turn that I'm also going to turn that YouTube video into a couple of blog posts. So as I laid out just a few minutes ago in this video, I typically talk a little bit about what's going on in my business, what I'm seeing. Then I talk about some things that I might be changing to get some different results. And then I offer up some potential things that you can think about in your own business. And a lot of times those three topics lend themselves very well to three separate blog posts. So I am going to, number one, be posting the video itself with a summary, but I'm also going to use AI to turn the transcript of the video into three separate blog posts, or I should say up to three separate blog posts, because certainly some videos will not lend themselves to that many different posts. But I believe this is what I can get out of most of the videos that I'm creating. And one thing I want to note here is another reason that I chose to do this starting with a YouTube video is because I can transcribe the YouTube video and feed that transcription into AI. I use a combination of ChatGPT 4.0 as well as Jasper. And if I feed it words that I actually said, it's far more likely to come up with unique content that actually sounds and feels like me and the way that I want to portray myself on my website or anywhere that someone's coming across me, whether it's through a Google search or a referral or what have you. So that's another reason that I'm starting with a YouTube video at the pinnacle of this quadrangle that I'm working with here for repurposing my content. All right, so now we've talked about how this is going to turn into an email newsletter and blog posts. So I also am going to have the ability to turn this into YouTube Shorts, which I can repurpose into Instagram Reels and Facebook Reels. And I am currently doing all of my video editing within Canva. Is Canva the absolute best choice for video editing? No, hands down, it's not. I'm openly admitting that. But what it does do is it gives me the ability to easily change the video from a YouTube, horizontal rectangle orientation and cut it into a video that could be used in a vertical rectangle orientation for shorts, reels, and reels on Facebook as well. So I know I'm making a calculated choice by using Canva. It's what I know. It's honestly kind of difficult, but we're working through it. And for now, this is what I'm going to go with because, again, I can just duplicate a video, cut out the exact part that I want to cut out, repurpose it, and there I am showing up on just another platform. Same message, same me, just showing up in one more place. And there are two arrows here. So let's go with this shortest arrow or inner arrow first. All of these blog posts are going to be made into Instagram and Facebook posts. So I will be asking AI to break these topics down into some threads that I can post on Instagram. I'm going with a really simple approach on Instagram because I don't think my clientele needs flashy branding or any of that. Like, they want the real me. And that's what I'm going to be giving them on Instagram and Facebook. And then in addition, we've got this larger arrow out here. I would say this is a little bit in the works, but I'm also going to be posting all of this in some of, and I say all of this, I'm going to be repurposing this content to post it in some of the really good Facebook groups that I'm a part of. Again, not marketing myself, but just sharing my expertise. And then eventually, I want to create my own Facebook group where people can come to learn about this stuff, but also ask questions and learn and grow, just like I do in some of the Facebook groups that I find most engaging for me. So all of this starts with just one 20 to 25-minute YouTube video, but I actually have the ability to put this information in so many different places. Again, using the help of AI and making sure that I'm creating an efficient process to show up in even more places than I'm showing up now without actually working harder to create new content for every different place that I'm showing up to say a thing. So this is what I'm working on for my content marketing strategy, again, to show up in more places, to become more visible, and to get my expertise out there. Because if I don't know who just said this. It's a quote from somewhere. I saw it from one of my colleagues, but you can be an expert in something, but if you don't ever talk about it, if you don't ever let people know about it, then like what for? So that's what I'm doing now, is really trying to get my voice out there and to be heard, and not just to make noise, but to provide true value with everything that I'm putting out there. So this is my content strategy. Again, if this resonates with you, feel free to copy and paste the whole thing for your own business to make sure that you also are showing up in every single place that you can. But in just a moment, I'm going to talk a little bit more about your content strategy in case this isn't the right one for you. And then I'm going to talk more broadly about some questions you can ask yourself in Q4 that will help you have a successful rest of your year. So if this content repurposing strategy is resonating with you, whether my specific process is resonating with you, or if you just know that you need to be doing something like this as well, I just want to make sure that you understand kind of where this stemmed from for me, and how you can find the right content marketing strategy for yourself. So I mentioned that I feel like I have been trying to force a content marketing strategy, a content repurposing strategy for a very long time. Over a year. We're heading on almost 2 years now that I've had this thought on my mind. And I've been creating content for even longer than that, and wasn't even thinking about repurposing it before then. And I have seen all the experts out there say, do this, do that. If you can just copy and paste and move it from here to there. And that's all well and good, but I never had like a pinnacle piece of content that I felt like deserved repurposing, which again, imposter syndrome. I'm sure plenty of the writing that I've done has deserved to be shared in multiple places, but the structure of the content itself didn't lend itself to being repurposed in the way that a YouTube video does. So even if a YouTube video isn't right for you, I would urge you to find the content that you're already creating that gives you joy, and kind of start there and see what you can do with that content. And that might be launching a podcast, and maybe it's starting a YouTube channel, and maybe it's starting a monthly roundtable with, within your business. It doesn't have to be something so public, but I just want you to keep in mind that the pinnacle piece of content has to be something that you feel strongly about, and that really kind of like feels like you and showcases who you are within your business and within your expertise, and is also actually repurposable in multiple ways. If you're going to struggle to repurpose your pinnacle piece of content, it's always going to feel forced, and you're never going to feel like you have it figured out. So if figuring out a content marketing and repurposing strategy is important for you, I urge you to find that pinnacle piece of content that you can break down in multiple different ways, so that you're never fighting, you're never swimming upstream in order to make this happen. Because content repurposing is about efficiency and it's about saving you time. And if every time you try to do it, it's hard and it's hard and it's hard, you're never going to be able to get past that hump. So truly, you just have to find a flow that works for you. All right. Thank you for listening to my rant on content repurposing. And now let's get into some questions that you can ask yourself to have a successful Q4 in your own business. One thing that I didn't really mention yet, but which is very important to bring up in this whole Q4 strategy planning discussion in my business, but certainly in yours as well, is I have decided to go with a content repurposing strategy as my main focus and goal for this quarter of the year, because I am trying to break myself out of the feast or famine cycle that a lot of web designers and other online entrepreneurs live in. And we've all noticed, again, I can say it, I probably will continue to say it in most of these videos that I make. We all know that the economy is down, things are more expensive, people are holding onto their money tighter, and lead life cycles are longer. Again, as discussed previously, those are things that are out of my control. So what I really want to do is I want to build a really strong foundation, or continue to build this really strong foundation that doesn't rely on that feast or famine cycle. And I noticed a couple weeks ago that I've really built myself a runway that gives me the latitude to, instead of needing to scramble for my next client so that I can pay my bills or the expensive mortgage on my new house, I instead have a little bit of breathing room in the monthly recurring revenue that I've set up, and some ongoing payment plans, as well as some of those white label relationships I have where those clients bring me business. So if I don't scramble right now, if I actually give myself time to focus on the things that help eliminate scrambling overall, then I will be continuing to build that strong foundation that I'm looking for. So for me, this looks like showing up in a lot of different places, getting myself seen, because I am an expert and I do have valuable knowledge to share. And if I'm not sharing it with people, then that's at a detriment to both my business, but also the potential clients who don't hear all of the great things that I have to, or that I can do to help them. So I want to be very clear that I am focusing on this strategy, for this content repurposing strategy, for long-term success. I am not doing this because I think it's going to bring leads into my business ASAP, because that would be an unrealistic expectation. And because I've given myself that runway that it doesn't have to bring clients in ASAP. But if I play that long-term game, in the future, when I have slow periods where I'm not just bringing new clients in from my own connections, hopefully all of this information will be out there, or assuming YouTube doesn't disappear overnight for some catastrophic reason, all of this information will be out there for people to continue getting to know me over time, and hopefully inject new leads and new revenue into my business because I've put the work in. So I just want to be very clear that I'm looking at a long-term strategy here in order to break out of that feast or famine cycle. So in that light, I have a couple of questions that you can think about yourself as you start to think about what Q4 should look like for you. All right, the first question that I want you to ask yourself is, what would make Q4 a successful quarter for you? And this could look like a lot of different things. This could be a revenue goal. This could be a time management goal. This could be a lifestyle goal. But just think about all the different ways that you'd like to see success in your business. And whatever you choose to focus on in this quarter should directly influence this goal that you have. The second question, which lends itself directly to that, is what are some tangible steps that you can take to meet those goals? So SMART goals are good and all, but what I'm really talking about here is knowing specific steps that you can take. And if you can't come up with anything tangible that you can do to meet that goal, it's probably not a particularly reasonable goal. I'm not saying it's not a good goal, because there can be good goals that are not reasonable. But if you can't actually think of anything that you can implement literally in your business today or tomorrow or next week that will help you meet that goal, then you might want to revisit that goal and decide if it's actually something that's achievable. The next thing that I want you to think about is what are your long-term goals and what can you do this quarter to set yourself up for long-term success? So, like I mentioned, I am choosing not to fall victim to that feast or famine cycle, and I am focusing on something that should have long-term successful implementation in my business. And I want you to make sure you're doing the same thing. Don't just choose what feels good in the moment, but make sure you're giving yourself some of that delayed gratification of what will continue to work for you in the long term. The next question I want you to consider is, does what you are currently doing in your business reflect the long-term success that you're after? And it might feel really easy to just be like, well, duh, I'm here building my business, aren't I? But you really have to make sure that the ways that you're setting yourself up now are going to have long-term impacts in a positive manner. So for example, if you had asked me this question in February of 2021, the answer would have unequivocally been no. I am not currently doing things in my business that reflect the long-term success and the lifestyle that I want to live. I was a virtual assistant and a personal assistant, and I was like adding healthcare bills or like doctor's bills to this healthcare portal, and like nothing that had anything to do with the work I wanted to be doing. And also the work that I was doing was soul sucking and it was never ending. And I didn't get to live the lifestyle that I wanted to live. And I had to make big changes to get to where I am now, to be living this barefoot lifestyle that makes me as happy as it does. So you also want to be, you want to be considering if what you're doing right now is good or bad for your business long term. And the last question that I want you to ask yourself is, do you have the tools in place to support your goals? So it's one thing to want something, but you have to actively be working towards that. And for many of us, that looks like efficiency in our businesses. That looks like making sure we're not spending valuable time doing menial tasks that don't actually get us anywhere. So as you're starting to think about this, it also includes your website. Is your website working for you? That is a tool that should be working for your business. So these are 5 questions that you can ask yourself and, just make some little notes or open a Google Doc and just answer these questions. And once you've answered these questions, you'll have an even better idea of what you can be doing in Q4 in order to make sure that you're setting yourself up for long-term success, not just in Q4, but into next year as well. As always, thank you so, so much for joining me here today. It is a pleasure to be able to share this knowledge with you. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them below in the comments or shoot me an email at hello@wandersoulco.com. And I very much look forward to continuing this conversation with you if you've got more thoughts about anything that I've discussed today. Again, including that entire content repurposing strategy. If you want to ask me specific questions about how that can work for you, just drop me a line.